So let's go into the Google Pomeli photo shoot feature, which launched last week and is kind of, taken over. Google Labs launched the Pomeli photo shoot, which is an AI tool that turns basic product snapshots into studio quality marketing images using their Nano Banana model. It's kind of one of the first features featuring AI that Google has launched that is different and that isn't just, Gemini baked into, your email or your photos or, asking basic like chat questions. It's targeting e-commerce sellers and small businesses in order to kind of cut photography costs and compress, timelines of how long that takes generally. I thought it was a smart play. I think it's like one of those things where people question like the value of it. Like, how important is it to take like perfect photos of like your product? It focuses specifically on product photography, in terms of like the accuracy and consistent lighting, brand safe backgrounds, versus broad creative generators. I know that we've seen other companies use AI photos. Um, for me, the one that stands out is DoorDash because they've kind of started taking over the food dishes, right? Like, and just making it a little too like, clean and very clearly AI. I've seen people kind of complain about it because it's like, oh, it doesn't actually show what the actual food looks like. I prefer to see like the actual photos from like users of
Mhm.
like the dishes themselves. So I think that is going to be something that we're going to have to, face here as people kind of, start going in that direction. I think another thing that people kind of will have to keep an eye out is like how much it's reverting to the mean of like, all those people participating and everything that is kind of cold from, I think it's probably pulling from like their Google shop like storefronts, right? Where business owners have uploaded their own photos and kind of going in that direction. Um, yeah. So one thing to kind of like keep an eye out there is like, are you separating your brand, from like what AI is creating for you? How well are you giving it prompts in order to make sure that it's still kind of keeping in line with your brand and your colors, the brand guidelines that you have. So that's something to kind of keep an eye out for, going forward. But it's going to make it a lot easier for people because obviously it's going to like integrate with like Google Ads and their merchant center and position Google a little bit more to compete against Amazon, Shopify, and Adobe. So it's kind of taking on all of those. I think the biggest, one that we'll see going forward that's kind of changing it up will be Shopify, just because it's kind of, infringing on their, customer base. So it was interesting to me that that's the direction that they're going. But yeah, Martin, did you see this? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I've kind of got two takes on it. Like one is like kind of more for like say solopreneurs and small businesses that Google have kind of made it free to look like
Hmm.
everybody else. What they've given is a gift, but that gift is also kind of a trap.
Hmm.
The challenge a lot of these businesses are going to have is differentiation, and like the stock photo bar has just like the base has just got up a bit, so within 6 months they become the new stock photo if you don't do it well. I think, as you
Hmm.
mentioned, like you're going to have to put a lot more effort into like under like your say your brand identity, your prompting, your style guides, where you differentiate. And I think the brands that like don't really use it to save money, but put the money they're saving into like say building distinctive assets will get a bit more out of the tool.
Hmm.
And my second take is Google have just so many AI tools now. It's hard to keep up
Hmm.
with them. It's like I feel like Google are one interface away from dominating the whole of AI,
Hmm.
because if you look at it, they're kind of integrated into everything in your daily life.
Hmm.
Gemini touches you multiple times a day, whether it's on Gmail, YouTube.
And even Google search, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's, yeah, exactly. And I think the product they're using here, it was Nano Banana Pro, right? And,
Hmm.
uh, and I think, you're probably going to touch on it a bit later, but it's like the more you use these tools, the more you realize that the craft still matters, really
Hmm.
understanding, how to prompt. If you want to prompt like a really good photo shoot, you got to really know like the type of camera, the lens, the more say metadata you can put into the prompt, the better the output. So I don't think you're de-skilling here. You're just abstracting. but you're
Yeah.
going to create like different communities, people who use it to produce AI slop and people who use it to produce actually some pretty good work, I think.
Mhm. I mean, if anything, I don't necessarily see it being completely where you're cutting photographers out of the loop. It's just maybe you don't require as much, like, as many photos from them, A, and then B, as much
Exactly.
editing from them, right? So if
Yeah,
like the
you still need a
photographers,
baseline.
right, exactly. So it's like you need someone to at least take the first photos so that like the product actually shows up properly. And then from there, if anything, if the photographers become better at editing the product photos for you, then are you really cutting them out or just paying them for a new skill that they've got? Or, alternatively, you'll see, new people pop up that can take your, photographer's photos and create, product photos from that at different angles, with different colors, different backgrounds, and all
Mhm.
that. So it's again one of those things of like, what is the opportunity here for people to, learn new skills, learn how to prompt better, right? I
Yes.
don't think a lot of companies or solo businesses are going to be like, oh, let me go and like create this, and then that first version is going to be good enough quality for being online. So, I mean, I think that's definitely going to be a thing here. Even like the ones that like I saw, it's like people that I know are deep into AI and like no prompting.
I'm all for like say, companies giving tools to people who didn't have access. Like say, like if you're a solopreneur and you don't have the budget photographers, okay, this is
Mhm,
a great tool. You can get you off the ground, get you started. But maybe I was just thinking that maybe it creates a whole different, like say opportunity.
mhm,
Maybe you get like really good photographers teaming up with really good prompters, teaming
mhm,
up with really good say copywriters, producing very original brand assets for an initial say startup, and then your
mhm,
internal team then can adapt and say use those with say a pack of say really tailored prompts
mhm,
that would not have been thought of before. So you have like one really senior skill team producing an
mhm,
initial, like say, brand, say, like a say the next level brand guideline, including
mhm.
photography, and then the internal team uses that to say operationalize it internally. So we don't know. New opportunities might come out of it also.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing that this also reminds me of is how we go in like stages of, different types of um, what is it, like brand styles that are in style at the time, right? Like,
Mhm,
there was the time when, everybody had those like drawings and like the cartoons, right? And then that shifted over to rounder cartoons. And it seems like we're reverting back to having like photos of things be, photos of the product, with a certain style, certain lighting, like the hand holding, right? And I
mhm,
think there's that problem where it's like if we're adding AI to it, then it's like everything is going to be shifting towards like, this is where everything is at. And that really hinders your ability to stand out when your product looks like every other product that's out there. Um,
mhm,
so that's definitely something to think about here, where it's like, coming up with like the colors and like the branding specific to your company and your product first, and then from there trying to build out on that, as opposed to just immediately going to one of these services and having it kind of just revert to like what everybody else is doing, because that's all
yeah,
the AI is doing, right? It's taking whatever everybody else is doing and what's popular at the moment, and it doesn't have the ability to think creatively and like think outside the box or think about why your product is different, right? Like, and that's
mhm,
where you need to come in and be like, okay, well, where does my product kind of stand out, right? Or like, what is it about my product that's different? Who are my competitors? How can I make it look slightly different from like what they're doing, what they're building, in order to then stand out? Because otherwise, I mean, how are you going to compete? you know,
yeah.
I think that's something we all have to, think about is
Yeah, so
competition.
the opposite might happen here is
Hmm.
that like because we all know, right, that with these tools being accessible, so many people are just going to jump on there, forget
Hmm.
about say shooting photography, saying, "Hey, I'm going to
Right.
produce this all myself, put it out there." So much volume and scale of content just going to go out, and it's going to become multiples. So on the other side, then someone that actually does something thoughtful,
Hmm.
tasteful, a bit different is going to really stand out in that sea of sameness.
Right.
And the person who helped produce that then is going to be more in demand, and they can push up their rates and push up their
Mhm.
fees. And so it depends how it's going to play out. My view, if I'm betting on it, is that we're going to see a lot of images looking the same, very
Mhm.
polished, very professional. And then we're going to see someone like Liquid Death coming
Oh,
along
yeah.
and doing it radically different,
Yeah.
and then everyone's going to move to that trend and
Right,
style.
exactly. Yeah, I just saw somebody post up how one of the users that or industries that she sees doing, oh, this is a shout out to Justine Moore, who's like, really cool, kind of stays on top of what AI is doing. And she posted that one of the industries she sees using AI a lot more than others is real estate, right? And we think about the necessity there
Hmm.
to create different views of homes, right? Because it's like you have so many realtors kind of competing against each other. And, homes that like, can be boring. Like, how do you fix the lighting? How do you fix, the background? How do you make the home look better? Um, and I saw, she posted this one where it's like a video of like, flashing lights of, putting in like the text of, what the different features to the house are to make it interesting, right? In order to kind of get that attention, right? So,
Hmm.
I see them kind of like realizing, oh, like, I saw some of them doing it where it's like you would shift the background. So you have the house, what it looks like during the day, and then you have it at like sunset and at like nighttime, right? So it's kind of, have that differentiation. And then now you have it with like lights turning on and off. So you could see what the home looks like,
Mm.
right, at different like
So good.
stages. So I thought that that was like really interesting and like a really good use case, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like you want to give people more examples of like an actual thing that they can look at while still using the asset, which is the home. And so that like makes, total sense. But I don't think they've fully gotten rid of like the photographers who take the actual photos, it's just like, how do you build on top of that? Right. So that's definitely, something to think there. So a couple lessons here. Make sure that you do still have good, high quality photos of your initial product so that you do have those as like a foundation to build on top of. And then get creative from there, right? Like take those
Mhm.
ideas of like, like I mentioned with this example of like the homes, it's like, well, what is it that people want to see, right? Well, they want to see what the home looks like in different situations, right? One also featured like, this is what it looks like when you have parties, right? Like you have the fashion light. Here's what it looks like with Christmas lights on, right? And it gives people a chance to kind of imagine more than they ever would have done, right? But you're still giving them what they want, which is to see the home as it could be, right? So it's like making it aspirational, making it where they're building on their own like imagination, and it's also giving them a chance to think up stories, right? Of like, this is what I would do if I lived at this house, right? This is what the party would look like, and this is what
Yeah. Exactly. You see, you still need the base asset, right? Which is some
mhm,
really good photography of the house. And
right,
then where AI can add the value is, like you're saying, show it at different times of the day. Because I don't want to bring the photographer, the team out
right.
every hour to
Every
photograph.
hour.
Different weather, like
Uh-huh.
snow, summer,
Mhm,
nighttime, morning.
mhm,
And it just, as you say, it immerses the person, the buyer, in saying, I can imagine myself living there during that, say, season or
mhm,
that weather. And that's a use case I think that's going to grow and grow. And I think we're seeing it already. I'm in Dubai, which is the
mhm,
home of real estate. It's amazing. Had a coffee with a friend a week ago that was planning an event, and he
mhm.
literally gave him the off-plan drawings 2 days before the event. He showed me the video they produced, and it was like incredible. It was like someone hired a professional drone operator to shoot it, but it was just, again, it was just AI. So
Yeah,
now we're
yeah.
putting the drone operator out of work. So we're putting
Yeah.
somebody out of work somewhere.
They were probably busy with the Olympics, right? Awesome. And then another lesson for me is to make sure that before you start using these AI tools, you have a good idea about your own brand, like the coloring, the positioning, the imaging, like what works well for your product in order to kind of retain your own values at the forefront, right? And not just start reverting to the mean, right? Obviously, this is going to be more of a thing where as you're learning how to prompt you kind of keep that there, but I mean a thing that you can do is just upload your brand guidelines, right? Like these are our
Mhm.
colors, these are how our fonts, so it kind of still keeps that like brand integrity without just like having the AI come up with everything. I really think like that's gonna be like the differentiator here between like the brands that like still come at it from like wanting to enhance their own brand and those, companies that just kind of, use AI to come up with everything. And people are starting to become a little bit more discerning, I think, in all facets of AI.
Yeah, and I think just the one other side to this is that like people think that like if you're using AI, oh, you don't have to work anymore. You get it done in
Mm,
like 10 minutes, you're finished. My experience is that new work replaces the work you're doing. Is in like what you're describing there. If you want to compete on the same, say, playing pitch as other brands, you're going to have to put in 10 times more effort into
mm,
your brand guidelines, your style, your
mhm,
differentiation where maybe you weren't putting that effort before, because the only place you can differentiate if everyone's working off the same base tools is into the pre-planning. So the
mhm,
pre-planning phase becomes huge, but you don't really save time. If you're saving
mhm.
time, you should worry. You're going in the
Yeah.
wrong direction.
I mean, I think that's what we're all learning, right? I'm an article that just came out. I think it was on the Harvard Review or one of those journals
Yep.
that was basically saying that AI is giving you more work to do, right? And this is the reason why, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
now you have this opportunity to be doing all these other things that you wouldn't have done before. You didn't have time, you thought it wasn't worth doing, or that you wouldn't be able to spend as much time as you
Yep.
needed to. It's not going to replace entirely what you're doing. It's going to replace certain aspects, but you still have to come at it with like the baseline, foundation of knowledge, and like taste. I think like that's a huge thing that
Mhm.
people, particularly marketers, should keep an eye out for about like what the skills that they're learning. Yes, learn prompting, but then also go out there. Like, what are other companies doing? What are other industries doing? What are their baseline? Right, the bigger companies aren't going to be, changing their brand entirely, right? So like what's popular with them? Are there things that you can take from them that you can then use AI to help you enhance and then move forward from there.
Yeah, that you're saving a load of time. Well, your competitor is using that time to invest it somewhere else that you're not investing your time. So
Mhm, mhm,
it's kind of like everyone will get to a new equilibrium, and then you still have to differentiate and put the effort
mhm,
somewhere. What I see is you got AI kind of FOMO because
mhm,
AI presents infinite opportunity. So, for example, if you're a perfectionist, AI is really bad for you
mhm,
because
yeah,
you can keep changing that, like that graphic, that piece of
forever.
copy forever and ever and ever. And
Uh-huh.
ChatGPT will say, like, you're so right. I should have done it
Yeah.
the last time that way. So this is where you said taste is really important because you
Mhm,
need to know when it's like done as well,
mhm, mhm.
right? And you need to
But I
let
think that's
go.
the
And
perfect segue into your
yeah,
topic, right? Because this is
yeah,
like the example of what AI helps you enhance.
Yeah, like you mean you're talking about a species, right? Maybe that
Mhm.
like still cares about brands, and I'm talking going to talk about a species that doesn't really care about brands, right?